What's good? In 1979, we learned that in space, no one can hear you scream. In 1986, we learned that the perfect organism has one fatal flaw. Lead. In 1992, we learned that in this universe, there are no happy endings. In 1997, we were subjected to the torture of a movie written by Joss Whedon.
Must be a chick thing.
In 2012, we saw the expansion of what an alien film could be. And in 2017, we saw the evolution of the scariest villain in the entire franchise. Finally, in 2024, a new film was released. And what did we learn this time? Well, that's what we're gonna talk about. Welcome back to my Alien franchise retrospective, where we're reviewing all of the movies in depth. If you wanna see me go over the previous 6 movies, I do that in these 2 videos. But today, for the final part, I wanted to get a well-rounded picture of this franchise in total. So in addition to talking about Alien Romulus, I'm gonna look at the 2025 FX show Alien Earth, as well as the 2014 video game Alien Isolation, which I recently just played for the very first time. But enough of the preamble, let's get into it. Make sure you have your box of jujubes on hand and that you're seated in a comfortable position. Or have your phone face down on the counter while you're cooking or something, that's cool too. And let's drop in. Now, whether you're moving to a new planet or just a new city, the worst part is all the little things you don't have figured out yet. You have to find your people, your places, and your doctors from scratch. That feeling of not knowing where to turn when something feels off is terrible. That's why when I move to a new city, I use today's sponsor, ZocDoc, the perfect stress-free way to prioritize your health. ZocDoc is a free website that helps you find and book high-quality, in-network doctors so that you can find someone you love. Across all 50 states, they have in-network booking with over 150,000 providers. Whether you're looking to see someone in person or just a quick video visit, ZocDoc offers over 200 specialties, so you can easily build the care team that's right for you or your specific symptom. Making an appointment is so easy because you can view actual patient reviews, availability, and book right on the website. No phone calls and no waiting around. That's a big deal because for a lot of us, it's not that we don't want to go to the doctor, it's that the process is daunting. Calling offices, being on hold, not even knowing if the doctor is the right fit, it's enough to make you put it off, like many of you might be doing right now. And I get it because I was doing the exact same thing. When I finally used ZocDoc, I was surprised to find and book a primary doctor that was not only in my vicinity, with availability, but a highly rated one at that. Appointments made through ZocDoc typically happen fast, often within 24 to 72 hours, and sometimes even within the same day. Your health is important, and I want you guys to be able to make it a priority without all the added stress of having to make an appointment. Head to ZocDoc.com/JCote to find a doctor that's right for you. It's completely free and it takes minutes. You'll feel a lot better knowing you did. Thank you to ZocDoc for sponsoring today's video and helping us all take better care of our health. Now back to the video. Alien Romulus, directed by Fede Alvarez, who also did the 2013 remake of The Evil Dead, would be the first Alien film to come out after the acquisition of 20th Century Fox by good old Disney. And the reality that we will likely never get to see that third film in the Prometheus Covenant trilogy is just devastating to me. But we can't look at what could have been, we have to look at what we have. So let's talk about the most recent Alien film, and what this tells us about the new direction the Alien franchise is now headed. This film was extremely and widely well received upon release. I mean, if you pull up the critics and audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, it's pretty obvious that they made like a really crowd-pleasing movie, and I know firsthand that this movie has a lot of fans. Judging by a lot of comments on my last video, people have been really excited for me to talk about this film and sing its praises, and from what I've seen looking at other videos and a lot of discussions online, there's this idea that the franchise had mostly lost its way, and that this movie is a saving grace of sorts that sort of brings things back in line with the quality of the first 2 films. Now, in my view, this film has some of the highest highs of any movie in the entire franchise, while simultaneously having some of the most insulting rock bottom lows of any film in the franchise. So while I will try to keep this review balanced, I want to warn everyone that there will be long stretches where I'm pretty negative towards this. Probably a lot more negative than most people want to see. But just to be clear, I'm not critiquing this to say anyone who loves this film is wrong and here's why. Even if I express myself passionately, I'm just sharing my personal feelings. And this really should go without saying. I don't know why I felt the need to say all of this. I just feel like I'm pulling the pin out of a grenade for some reason. I know I've had a lot of hot takes so far, and people can call me a contrarian if they want, but it. There's absolutely no point in me making this video if I'm not 100% honest about how I actually feel. So here we go. So Romulus takes place in between Alien and Aliens. We open on a skiff showing up to the destruction of the Nostromo, and it's there to collect the xenomorph specimen that Ripley blew out of the airlock in the first film. Right off the bat, this is weird to me. I understand they wanted to connect it to the first film, but I just don't think this was the way to do it. So Weyland-Yutani apparently then knows everything that happened on board the Nostromo. They know there was an alien on board. They know that Ripley blew up the ship and then jettisoned the alien. And this is contradicted by Alien when she gets picked up by random chance after floating in space for 50 years and is then questioned by Weyland executives who don't even believe her story, really. But whatever, let's just say this is a random branch of Weyland-Yutani that kept everything secret and then was destroyed later on in the outbreak. And then all history of them was somehow erased. But why then would they go looking for the alien that she blew out the airlock? It said that they looked for this specimen floating in space for 20 years. When we see the lab later on in the film, we see that they know that these specimens came from LV-426. So why wouldn't they just go back to LV-426, where the aliens were originally found, and then collect as many specimens as they want? It's not hidden or something. They put a colony there. Why are you looking through space for this alien? Just go back to the derelict. But let's get back to the meat and potatoes here. I'm already hyper focusing on details that I'm sure nobody cares about. We follow Kaylee Spaley's character Rain and David Johnson's Andy. They live on a Weyland-Yutani mining colony planet. They are stuck under the boot heel of the company, slaving away for years to pay off their contract so that they can get leave to travel to a new system. One Rain hopes will have a visible sun in the sky. She's alone with her companion Andy, who's a synthetic that her father repaired before he died of lung disease. A disease it seems that anyone who spends too many years on this hell planet succumbs to eventually. But not to worry, because Rain has fulfilled her 12,000 hours in her contract and applies for a transfer, only for the Weyland-Yutani clerk to deny her and double her work contract. The dream that she can get out of here through hard and fair work is only that. A dream, because the company will give you absolutely nothing, and in return they expect you to give your life. This opening segment on the mining colony is exceptional. We're seeing more of the universe of Alien, yet it's in perfect harmony with everything that's been set up and shown to us before. I love this. But before I get to the setup of this film, let's talk about Easter eggs. Even just at the start of this film, we're getting a lot of point at the screen moments. You got the water drinking bird, because you gotta have the water drinking bird in there. It's funny how big of a thing this is in this franchise. A lot of properties love to reference it just for fun. It showed up in Alien Covenant, which is really the only instance of fan service in that film. It's in Alien Isolation as well. Oh my god, it's the bird drinking water from the movie. It's actually in Alien Isolation a lot. And it's here too, right at the beginning. It's a little extra. It's like framed right in the center of the frame during like a pretty important conversation right at the beginning of the movie.
Sure is Mr. Finch. We owe him 3 months today.
Then we see a bar sign, and it's the exact same bar sign from Aliens. And of course, these are harmless on their own, but I think it's a little indicative of what's to come later, and they really start to pile up. Like, this is not a Marvel movie, okay? We don't need top 10 things you missed in the background of every shot in Alien Romulus. Number 1, Frank's foot oil from Alien Resurrection. Okay, it's just unnecessary. So they meet up with this ragtag group of rambunctious teens. Tyler, Navarro, Kay, who's pregnant, remember that for later, and Bjorn, the annoying douchebag character. I wasn't sure about this when I was first watching this film because it feels a little young adult novel to follow like a cast of all young characters like this, but there's actually a good reason for this. Like I said earlier, their parents have pretty much all died off from lung disease from being stuck on this mining colony too long, so you really buy this ticking clock element of why they're so desperate to get off of this colony before they eventually succumb to the same fate. So there's an abandoned Weyland-Yutani station in orbit, and they want to steal the cryopods from the station so that they can make the 9-year trip to the planet Yavaga. The only thing is they need Andy to access the ship's systems because he's a Wayland unit. Ray needs some convincing, but after seeing someone walk by with a literal caged bird, really dude, really? She agrees and we have our alien movie set up. When we go to the Romulus space outpost, we're treated to some of the most stunning space shots in the entire franchise. I think they really did nail the technical aspects and the look of this so well. Fede Alvarez focused a lot on building these giant practical sets and even used miniatures for a lot of the wide shots of the ships, which is really rare to see in modern movies, and I think it really paid off. Unfortunately for them, when they get to the cryopods, there's only 3 years left on them as opposed to the 9 years they need to get to Yavaga. So they decide to go deeper into the station to find more of the cryo fluid they need. Bjorn is being a huge asshole to Andy because he's robophobic due to an instance of a synthetic sealing his mom in a tunnel during a gas leak to save the most amount of lives. On some iRobot shit.
Get the hell out of my face, Scanner.
I don't know if it's just me, but his British accent was so thick at times that without subtitles, I genuinely couldn't understand what he was saying.
What's happening?
But here it's revealed that Rain plans to leave Andy behind as Yavaga is not a Weyland-Yutani system, and thus they have a no synthetics policy. This is a great moment, but unfortunately they just decide to throw in another reference to aliens right in the middle of this.
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
This is still a great scene, but it just felt like they couldn't help themselves. I get it, I like aliens also, but I'm trying to see what your movie brings to the table, and I'm enjoying your movies, so stop taking me out of the experience to remind me of another film. Like, I'm sorry, I know I'm nitpicking, but this also kind of hurts the characterization of both characters, Bishop and Andy, because in Aliens, when he said that, that felt like something unique to him. So is this like a line that's programmed into every synthetic? Or can they have their own personalities where they come up with their own sentiments like this? They find the cryo chamber and then they get locked inside. Andy does not have the clearance to get them out. So Rain has to come aboard the station to try to free them. She finds another dead synthetic and takes the chip from him so she can bring it to Andy and hopefully give him the clearance. I love the effect of Andy rebooting. It kind of reminds me of what they did with Walter in Covenant. But while they wait for Andy, it turns out they're not alone inside this room. There's something in the fucking water.
There's something in the fucking water.
Facehuggers are released into the room and this scene is wonderful. I love the disgusting little embryo dispensing phallus that's like trying to stick itself into his mouth. One thing that Fede Alvarez really understood with this film is the psychosexual undertones of H.R. Giger's work. He got the freaky aspect right, and it's something I love about this film. And Andy finished his reboot right in time to grab one of the facehuggers by the tail. They manage to escape the room and we get the facehugger money shot, which is so good. They close the door, but not before one of the facehuggers manages to launch and latch itself onto Navarro. Andy, with his new upgrade, also now has a more indifferent personality. And I think this is a good time to mention David Johnson's performance. He is exceptional and by far the best part about this film. He is to Alien Romulus what David was to Prometheus in Covenant. This guy is a breakout star and I'm so impressed by him. So whenever I've rewatched this movie, I think it's about here around 45 minutes in, where it's just firing on all cylinders and I'm enjoying it so much. And I start to wonder what it is I just don't like that much about this movie.
Get out, however you got in.
Oh yeah, now I remember.
If not, you all die.
At about 45 minutes in, Alien Romulus decides to throw any and all goodwill out the window with a choice so baffling I can't wrap my head around it to this day. To try and get some answers about the alien threat aboard this station, our characters revive the dead synthetic that's been lying on the ground, and it turns out to be Ian Holm from Alien 1. Ian Holm had unfortunately passed away by the time they filmed this, so they decided to use deepfake technology to resurrect him and put him in the movie. Not to even mention the morality of resurrecting a dead actor to puppet around for your movie product. I need to point out that Fede Alvarez actually did reach out to Holm's family and his widow to get permission to use his likeness as Ash in the film. And she said that he felt Hollywood turned its back on him in his later years, and she felt he would have loved love to be a part of this project. So I do think it is commendable that they got the blessing of his family to do this as opposed to the alternative. However, I don't think that this absolves it of any criticism. First off, this just sets a bad precedent in Hollywood when they really need to just learn to let the dead lie. And second, they just didn't do a good job. His head is like moving and shifting around independently of his body. And even if they were able to somehow get this effect looking perfectly and it was indistinguishable from the real actor, this would still be the wrong creative choice for this film. So this isn't actually Ash from Alien 1. It's a new character named Rook. It just so happens to be the same model as Ash. However, in Alien 1, Ash is blending in with the crew. No one's supposed to know that he's synthetic. But how would that make any sense if the Ash model is mass-produced and widely used? I've seen people try to downplay this and say, get over it, he's only briefly in the movie, only in like 1 or 2 scenes, which is, one, not really true. He actually shows up a bunch of times throughout the rest of the movie. But it doesn't even matter either way. You've tainted your film with an effect so unforgivably bad, it's the first thing anyone's gonna remember when they think of this movie. It's like getting a 10 out of 10 dish from a Michelin star restaurant, but they decided to just plop a little nugget of human shit just as the cherry on top. Someone could say, well, just eat around it. But there's still shit in the food. All that just so they could include fan service from a film that came out in 1979. We also get the reveal of the big chap from Alien 1. They used its DNA to create all the facehuggers and all of the stuff on board, but it turns out after 20 years of floating through space with no air and no food, it was still alive. So any alien creature in any of the Alien films that have ever been jettisoned out of an airlock are still floating through space alive somewhere. Like, can we not just give Ripley one single win? Like, we can't accept that she defeated one xenomorph in her career. We have to bring it back. So to get the facehugger off Navarro, they freeze the tail, which is actually pretty cool. Andy believes, however, that the creature already finished its job.
What's fucking inside me?
Andy doesn't want to let Navarro back on the ship, so her and Bjorn escape and leave the rest of them behind. We get a pretty inspired chest burster moment, which leads them to crashing their shuttle back on the ship. Rain, Tyler, and Andy now need to travel back through the station to get to the shuttle before the entire station falls into the rings of the planet and disintegrates. And to do that, they have to walk through the hallway with all the facehuggers. They're able to match the hallway's temperature with that of their bodies, which apparently makes them invisible to the creatures. There are a lot of good set pieces in this film, but in my opinion, this one was really dumb. Andy says that any amount of stress or fear will immediately raise their temperatures, but Rain literally gets jump scared by a dead body. They should be dead in this instant. Then Tyler decides to literally answer his phone, then start talking out loud while they're in the middle of the facehuggers. It's just definitely one of the weaker scenes for me. Back with the others, the chestburster turns into this kind of egg before it reaches its final form of the xenomorph. This is pretty cool because there were plans in the original Alien to actually have an egg form between the chestburster and the big chap that they ended up having to scrap. So we get to see it here, and this is crazy. It's just a full-blown vagina egg. I actually wonder if I can even show this on YouTube. Bjorn tries to fry it with his cattle prod, but it doesn't go so well. The acid blood pours out and down onto his fingers, and we get this wonderful shot of the skin melting off, revealing the skeleton underneath. It's just kind of funny though, because why is he not getting out from underneath the acid? Isabella Merced, aka Dina, aka, what is it? Kay? Runs from the xenomorph without looking where she's going, and she just plummets from the balcony. And the way she falls looks exactly like the way Walter White fell in the Fly episode of Breaking Bad. They all meet up on opposite sides of this door, but Andy refuses to open it for her because he knows the xenomorph is waiting for them to do just that, which would lead to them all getting killed instead of only her. I love that so much, and then Rain says,
How could you do that?
What? Leave someone behind?
Clocked. Okay. Here's where we get something really interesting, because this film doesn't try to connect itself only to Alien and Aliens, but also to Prometheus. That's right, baby. we're getting the black goo. I'm actually really glad they're not trying to ignore the canon of Prometheus and Covenant, which is what I thought they were gonna do. So using the DNA from the big chap, they're able to engineer their own black goo from that, implying that the black goo always came from the xenomorphs in the first place. They also like weirdly showed the jars from Prometheus 2, like that the engineers stored it in, which I think that was unnecessary. I've seen a lot of people claim that this fixes the canon of Prometheus and Covenant to show that the black goo always came from the xenomorphs as opposed to engineers creating the black goo and stuff themselves, and implying that the engineers and David created the xenomorphs. Because I think people misunderstood those movies in the first place. It was never implied that this was the creation of the xenomorphs. As we can see in Prometheus, there's already a depiction of a xenomorph on the wall, which would be impossible if those movies were about the creation of the first xenomorph. I do really like the idea that the black goo comes from the xenomorphs in the first place, which keeps the mysterious origin of the xenomorphs intact. I just don't think that this is changing or contradicting what was shown in Prometheus and Covenant before, as David was playing with these tools and trying to create a xenomorph, but not trying to create the first xenomorph, if that makes sense. I'm sure we can all argue about the lore in the comments, but they're using this black goo to try to reach the next step of human evolution, and they also bring the Ian Holm deepfake back to explain all of this to the audience. So they find this gun they can use against the Xeno that has automatic aim, which is pretty cool. There's this weird line though where Tyler says,
Electronic pulse action is what the colonial marines used.
I don't know why he uses past tense like they don't exist anymore when this takes place before aliens. Dina is dying, so they bring some of the black goo to her, even though they basically have no idea what it does. And she ends up just injecting herself with it. Okay. But they go out and find a hallway completely covered with this resin, similar to the way they covered all the tunnels the Marines traveled through in Aliens. I only got that on rewatch though. I remember being pretty confused what they were zooming out to reveal the first time I watched this. And there's this layer of blue light on the ground, which is directly from what we saw in the derelict in Alien 1. This was like a biomechanical ship, and there was like a layer of light that I always thought him traversing that layer of light was like kind of what alerted the egg to like wake up to his presence. So why is it here? Does it need to make sense? No, but it's from the first movie, so of course just throw it in. Tyler gets killed off here, and it's revealed that they're dealing with a shitload of xenomorphs, not just one. Andy also gets incapacitated. Rain sends Dina off to the ship by herself when she returns to go help out Andy. Rain makes the choice not to leave Andy behind. This is also where we transition in tone. Before we were doing Alien, and now we're doing Aliens. They even have basically the same shot of her opening the gate with the light and the wind.
If you're looking to reheat leftover nachos, there are several easy methods you can follow.
And she has the Reeboks because she's gotta have the Reeboks. So Rain uses the gun to scare off the Xenos, because apparently they know that it will kill them, so they don't lunge at her like a wild animal would. But she doesn't dare shoot them because she knows the acid blood will eat through the floor into open space. She is able to back up all the way to the back end of the hallway, and then here comes the Ian Holm deepfake again. And they even have him say,
I can't lie about your chances, but you have my sympathies.
because that's his iconic line from Alien, bro. We have to have him say his iconic line. It's just pure callback slop.
Sick reference though, bro.
Oh, thanks, bud.
Dude, your references are out of control. Everyone knows that.
Hey,
dude.
thanks, man.
Rain turns off the gravity though, and then she's able to shoot the xenomorphs in 0G, because I guess the idea is that in 0G the acid blood won't fall to the ground and melt through. I'm willing to buy this, okay? I don't want to be a total stick in the mud. Technically, an object in motion stays in motion, so any acid blood that jettisons from their body would still fly off in every direction and eat through the walls and floor, instead of hanging around in space just like in a perfect circle. But whatever, it makes for a really cool scene visually. So Rain and Andy try to escape up the elevator shaft in 0G, but the gravity turns back on right before Rain can grab a hold of something, leading to her plummeting all the way back down the elevator shaft. Luckily, the xenomorph that's been trying to kill them the whole time decides to catch her, saving her life, and then proceeds to not kill her and instead places her down gently on the ladder and then slowly moves towards her. I'm so confused about what's happening here. The first time I saw this, I genuinely thought it was revealing that the xenomorph is for some reason on their side and that they were like about to team up, because what is happening here? But then Andy jumps down to kill it before it harms her, because I guess it was just like aura farming before making the kill on Rain or something. I really don't know. But after Andy kills the Xeno and saves Rain, he says,
Get away from her. You bitch.
And I have just about had it with this movie, dude. I'm sorry, but as bad as Alien Resurrection is, at least they didn't stoop to this level. All he had to say was get away from her, and we would have gotten it. This is also a moment when Andy switches back to his earlier personality, and it's not in his character to swear. So to just throw it in here to have yet another callback is so shameless. Ripley didn't just say that line in Aliens because it was a badass thing to say. It had some purpose behind it. What are we doing here? Like, I don't know, dude, am I just the biggest Debbie Downer ever for hating this? Is everyone else just cheering and throwing popcorn around when they do these line callbacks? Luckily though, it seems Fede Alvarez decided to show up with a little bit of creativity and inspiration at the end of this film. Because amongst all odds, the last 20 minutes of this movie are fantastic. I don't know if the studio mandated that Fede put in all of this fan service bullshit and then let him go crazy at the end, or if Fede wanted to put all that shit in himself and then just decided to lock in at the end. But either way, it's like all of a sudden I walked into a different movie. They escape Romulus, and the station dying on the planet's rings is breathtaking visually. But before they can lay down in their cryopods, Isabella Merced's character gives birth to something. The Prometheus goo she injected herself with combined itself with the unborn fetus in her womb and created a new creature, referred to as the Offspring. You could argue that Alien Resurrection walked so that this movie could sprint, but the creature design here is incredible. It's birthed in this little shell that melts through the ground and into like this salt payload they have below, and then the baby grows up rapidly, and then we see it. This is arguably the scariest creature design in the series, full stop. And it's actually practical. The suit was worn by Hungarian basketball player Robert Bobrovsky. And being able to capture him and Kaylee Spaney's 5'1" ass in the same shot was so worth it. But dude, this ending is such jaw-dropping, weird, creepy alien shit. Rain walks in on it just like eating Kay, its own mother. This is the Fede Alvarez alien movie I've been waiting for this whole time. And in the end, she gets rid of it by letting its shell eat through the floor so that it'll get sucked out into space while she hangs onto a tether, leading to some of the best visuals in the series. After a one last jump scare that got my ass so bad even though I knew it was coming, Rain lays down for the trip to Yavaga and tells Andy she won't leave him behind no matter what. And that's it. So how do I parse this? Like I said, on one hand, this film has some of the highest highs, but to me, the lows it stoops to are inexcusable. Just too many flies in the soup, if you will. So Alien Romulus is getting a 6 out of 10 from me. Maybe one day I'll raise it. Maybe one day I'll lower it, I don't know, but that's how I feel right now. There is an Alien Romulus sequel in the works, and looking at it right now, it looks like Michael Sarnowski is rumored to be directing. He did Pig with Nicolas Cage, which is a movie I love. He also did A Quiet Place Day One, which is a movie I don't love so much. And whether or not this will be a direct sequel or go off in a new direction, we still don't know. Honestly, with how well Romulus performed, I'm surprised they didn't fast track a sequel to this, because as of right now, it seems like the Alien films are yet again in a state of limbo. There have been rumors about Fede Alvarez possibly butting heads with Ridley Scott, or some actors not wanting to return, but unlike what people online going off of pure speculation will have you believe, we don't actually know anything. But there actually has been something new to come out since this movie released. And that something is Alien Earth, which is the next thing we're gonna talk about. Because in 2025, a new Alien project was released, and this one took quite a different form, that of a TV show on FX. I'm not actually going to go on for too long about this show, because since I watched it back when it came out, it's really had no interest to me whatsoever. I'm definitely not going to go episode by episode to break down the plot. I just don't have the patience for that right now, nor do I think it would make for a very entertaining video. And unlike this show, I actually want to have some respect for my viewers' time. So instead, I'm just going to share some of my scattered thoughts and yap a bit, so I hope everyone will enjoy that. This show was very promising at first. I made a video on various streaming platforms a while back, and in that video I said this: right now the biggest draw for me is Alien Earth. That actually feels like a movie quality show that's dropping every week. That was after around 5 episodes of the show had aired, and Ooh, that did not age well. Basically, the show really fell apart for me in the last 2 episodes. I don't know if I would quite say that it jumped the shark exactly, but it just kind of started to dawn on me that they had no idea where this was going and then just ended it on a cliffhanger. The old modern TV show special move. 8 episodes that go absolutely nowhere, ended on a cliffhanger, and then return in like 2 to 3 years for another season after everyone had already forgot about your show in the first place. This is one great example of when the build-up or slow burn is way more interesting just in its anticipation than the actual climax or payoff turns out to be. Kind of like how the actual xenomorph is more scary the less of it we see. Funny how that works. This show just kind of feels removed from the Alien franchise in a lot of ways. Alien as a concept is body horror, with themes centered around pregnancy, forced birth, and gender roles, as well as assault and violation. This show seems a lot more interested in ideas around consciousness and the self, as well as what it means to be human, which is fine, but this just feels more like a Philip K. Dick adaptation, as opposed to like what was cool about that original movie. I guess Alien has always had like a little bit of cyberpunk in it, but this show feels like it wants to be Blade Runner more than Alien, but also doesn't go anywhere near far enough towards paying those ideas off. We see a lot more focus on these corporations that rule Earth, but we don't learn anything more about them that we didn't already know as the show kind of just peters out. Plus, the visual language of this just doesn't really have any of that sauce of those original movies, with of course some of the most unique and striking sets ever built for science fiction. Take, for example, Alien Romulus, or the video game we're about to talk about, Alien Isolation. In one frame of either of those, you know this is an Alien property. You don't need any more context that this is Alien. And on the other hand, this doesn't have any of that like smoggy, choked up, neon-filled like environment feeling of something like Blade Runner. I just think it would have been cool to give us a more like grim-looking Earth. It's just kind of set on this bright jungle island with pretty bland laboratory environments. Nothing about this says sci-fi horror to me. Nothing about this really says anything to me. This show also just visually demystifies the xenomorph to an egregious extent. I know that the xenomorph has already been demystified tenfold in a ton of bad movies, especially more action-focused stuff like AVP, but this is clearly going for a more slow horror tone. This thing never kills anyone unless you're an unnamed soldier. The amount of times it almost kills a main character and then just doesn't becomes laughable. And it's just constantly shown in broad daylight, which just doesn't help anything. When it walks up to Wendy and her human brother in the jungle, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel a lick of tension that something bad was gonna happen. And let's talk about Wendy. Wendy has the power to control just all of technology as well as the xenomorph itself. For some reason. She's just completely overpowered so the plot can happen however they want. Her arc is also just very rushed and forced. She kind of flips a switch, in my opinion, towards the end, when she intentionally lets out the xenomorph, seemingly showing absolutely no empathy or even pity for human life. And that was just not the read I had on her before that. Kirsch and Mora were by far the best part about this series in my opinion, but they were just underutilized. We just spend so much of the season with this kid and Mora trying to convince him to like betray everyone and him being unsure and scared, and I just like did not care about this side plot. The story that they decided to tell just can't hold the water of an entire season of television. Most of this stuff could have been easily resolved in a single episode or two, but are dragged throughout the entire season and then still don't pay off. One of the coolest things is the eyeball monster, but it doesn't have any bearing on events outside of just being a really cool creature that has unclear intentions, which is why it was interesting and had people talking. But by the end, it feels like the creators obviously didn't even have an answer for this themselves. It's like they J.J. Abrams mystery boxed the whole thing. And that's why I was enjoying the first 5 episodes so much, because I thought we were going somewhere and we weren't. I just feel like this was so much wasted potential. And then they let it end in such a contrived and corny place by having her look into the camera and say,
"Now we rule."
while some dad rock starts playing. I just couldn't roll my eyes any harder. Obviously, as just a little bottle episode, I still think that 5th episode was really cool. And looking back on it, I almost feel like that's just what this show should have been. Focused, contained episodes with a beginning, middle, and end. They could have told different stories about different characters, all taking place at different points in time, exploring different concepts. Maybe each one could be directed by a different director too. Instead, it was like 8 episodes of useless fluff. And I'm so tired of being strung along by shows that have less episodes and less content to even fill those episodes. And you know they have the studio just breathing down their necks, waiting to cancel this thing. So they feel the need to just leave you in the lurch with a cliffhanger and just promise something better next season, just so they can like artificially get that fan reaction of people begging for more so they can ensure another season. I just thought that if they were gonna mess with the canon this much by saying, oh, there were actually full-grown xenomorphs on Earth years before the events of Alien or Aliens. The thing that Ripley fought so hard to prevent from ever happening. The thing she even sacrificed herself to stop. Oh, but there were xenomorphs on Earth before all of that, and I guess it turned out fine. Nothing to worry about because it's on an island. They're contained on an island. Even though we know they can survive in space for 20 years and probably easily swim across an entire ocean. Look, maybe season 2 will be better and will redeem my feelings. I'm sure I'll make a video about it when it comes out. But as of right now, I want to give Alien Earth season 1 like a 4. There was some cool stuff in this that I was glad to see, but overall just felt like it had no respect for my time. Check it out if you're curious, but I don't know. Unless something changes big time next season, I don't really think it's worth watching. I just think about how Star Wars kind of lost its way, chasing the streaming trend and kind of just shot itself in the foot by focusing on Disney Plus slop shows, except for My Beautiful Baby Andor, of course, you've never done anything wrong, while letting the movie aspect of the franchise just fall by the wayside completely. This show, or any show for that matter, is just no replacement for Alien on the big screen. So I really just hope we get some concrete news about a new movie soon. Alien Isolation is a 2014 first-person survival horror game set about 15 years after that original 1979 Alien film. I wanted to include this video game because I think it's pretty integral to the actual story of the Alien franchise and played a huge part in reminding people what they loved about Alien in the first place. After Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection in the 90s, and then Fox deciding to take the franchise in the more schlocky direction of the Alien vs. Predator films, followed up by the pretty disappointing reception of Prometheus in 2012. It felt like Alien had maybe run its course, and any public excitement about seeing the xenomorph was maybe in the past. And when it came to the video game side of the IP, things weren't pretty to say the least. Most Alien-related games took after James Cameron's Aliens more than anything, because publishers felt that the sci-fi action shooter elements lent themselves better to the video game landscape. That's why taking a risk with a first-person survival horror title, where you're outfoxing a single unkillable alien pursuer, was such a breath of fresh air. And frankly, the pill of Viagra that this impotent franchise needed. Because in your apartment complex, all of your neighbors can hear you scream.
That's the whole idea, right? Is to play video games and have fun.
Oh my god! So for this series retrospective, I did a first playthrough of Alien Isolation on the intended hard difficulty, which ran me a little over 20 hours. Which frankly is just too long and definitely stretches itself thin for the kind of game it is. But it is a rich experience and I enjoyed almost every second of being immersed in this universe that I love. That before I've only ever been able to experience passively. While this is by no means a perfect game and has a ton of flaws, which I'll get into, I think Alien Isolation is a must-play game for any fan of this franchise. And especially for anyone like me who covets that 1979 Alien film above all the others. This will be a full spoiler review, so if you want to play it firsthand before listening to me drone on about it, now is the time. My first attempt at playing this did not go smoothly, as anyone who watched my 100k stream knows for themselves.
Do you feel awkward, bro? A little bit.
I couldn't figure out where to go and just kept hitting roadblocks before ever even getting to the alien itself. If anyone's curious to watch the VOD, it's just pure game journalist gameplay, and I definitely don't recommend it to anyone, but it's there. I don't blame this on the game being obtuse at all. I blame it on myself being inexperienced streaming.
Maybe live streaming's not for you, little bro. Okay, you might be right.
I was just really nervous and having a hell of a time trying to play a game I've never played before while reading chat, but when I started over and played it off stream, I quickly fell in love with this. You play as Amanda Ripley 15 years after the Nostromo went missing. You learn that another ship has found the flight recorder of the Nostromo and has brought it to a deep space station called the Sevastopol. So on a Wayland-sponsored mission, along with a couple other employees, including a synthetic, you go there hopefully to get some closure on what happened to your mother, Ellen Ripley. After no one from the station answers on radio, our characters attempt a spacewalk only to get split up. Amanda is now alone on this mysterious station where things are more dire than she could have ever imagined. The opening hour or so of this game is a slow build. You meet a survivor and find out that basically everyone in the station has gone insane. People are fighting for survival and killing each other, all while being constantly hunted down by the xenomorph that is loose on the Sevastopol, which we are introduced to when it shows up to predictably kill our newfound friend. And I say predictably because it has an alien coat of paint, but it's still a survival horror game at heart. And that's not a bad thing at all. I'm just saying that if you're familiar with these games, you will notice a lot of the trappings, like talking to NPCs on another side of a plane of glass, people taking the time to write scary messages on the walls, limited supplies and ammo, filling in the story through text logs and audio logs, bad stuff happening right when you pick up a key item or start a generator, bad stuff happening right before you get to your objective, saving as a mechanic, and so on. And I actually really like the saving in this game. You don't have limited saves like with an ink ribbon or something, but there is no autosave. Everyone has that moment on their first playthrough where you die and your stomach drops because you realize you can't remember the last time you saved.
Was that a while ago?
Oh my god. Oh my god. I haven't been saving. Leading to you obsessively saving every time you take 10 steps from then on. So if it hasn't been made clear from the gameplay I've shown on screen so far, pretty much the biggest appeal of playing this game is the design. Being able to walk through those Ron Cobb interiors like you're on the set of that 1979 Alien film is absolutely intoxicating, and they did such a great job. Even down to the detail of the look of all the little terminals and the shudders and beeps of that 70s sound design. It's all here. It's so obvious just how much of a labor of love this was, and something happens at the halfway mark that I didn't even dream of when I started playing this for the first time. We get a sequence where we get to walk on the surface of LV-426 and even explore the derelict. When this happened, I kid you not, my jaw dropped. I think this was my favorite part of the entire experience. More on that in the story section. The meat and potatoes of this gameplay is great. Basically, you have to make your way around different sections of the ship, all while avoiding aggressive androids, the alien itself, and other hostile survivors. You need to rely on stealth mostly, so you're given the ability to craft different gadgets and gizmos. You're also given a revolver and some ammo from time to time, which can be good for dealing with people or synthetics, but obviously won't work on the alien itself. For the alien later on, you'll be able to use Molotovs, or especially the flamethrower, which will be essential for making it back off for a brief time. Some of the enemies can be pretty video gamey. Like the fact that everyone is just automatically hostile to you is weird. Like, I get that things have gone to shit and there's limited resources and whatever, but we all have a common enemy here. I mean, what happened to safety in numbers? But no, everyone shoots you on sight. Why? And there's also the working Joes. I get that they need palate cleansers and something else for the player to face off against so that the xenomorph doesn't get too old, but they're just overused. Like 1 or maybe 2 sections with the working Joes would have been good, but I feel like you face them just as much as the xenomorph itself almost. I think it's neat and suspenseful when they mix in hostile ones with non-hostile ones in certain areas, but other than that, the reason they're even trying to kill you feels a bit contrived, but they're fine and definitely don't ruin the game or anything. Obviously, the biggest draw is the xenomorph itself. The alien apparently has a lot of AI going on behind the scenes and has some sort of behavior tree that responds to the way you're playing. I played the game on hard difficulty and definitely took a lot of punishment playing this way. I died over and over and over again. I died so much in some of the earlier encounters that I genuinely think I would have turned down the difficulty to medium if they hadn't added that hard was the intended way to play. So I wanted to honor that. Plus, I'm a freak who loves hard games anyways. Yeah, I beat Promised Consort Radon, pre-nerf, no summons, so... Give me some gamer cred or at least a little bit of play. But I'm actually so glad that I did keep it on hard. Pause. Because that made it so the game was genuinely tense and scary throughout. If I was under something or in a locker, I genuinely did not know whether the xenomorph would just pull me out. Because almost like 9 times out of 10, it did just find me. Which was a bit frustrating, so let me give you some gamer tips to help you on your playthrough. Number 1, don't hide in lockers. I feel like it's programmed to always come check out the locker you're in, and it's probably going to find you. You're much more likely to remain unseen just crouching behind like a little corner or something. Also, stay moving. Use your items often and just push onward. The more you slowly peek around corners and stare at your scanner and wait in little cupboards, the harder you're just making it on yourself. Unfortunately, you can never use the sprint button.
For God's sake, do it quietly.
The second you press the sprint button, it's game over. The story is pretty interesting in this game, and as far as I know, completely canon to the Alien universe. So I would say that the actual plot of the game is kind of bad. I'm sorry to say, like, the beat for beat storyline isn't great. The characters are not especially strong for the most part. Amanda herself is extremely boring and just kind of feels like an audience insert as opposed to a really fleshed out person. And a lot of the voice acting is extremely stilted and weak.
She was my wife. I loved her, and I killed her.
I'm sorry to say.
Gotta go meet the others. Something's going down.
Gotta go meet the others. Something's happening.
However, the background story and lore of Sevastopol Station is great. That's the stuff you get while reading the terminal messages, as well as the environmental storytelling. Funnily enough though, like unlike Resident Evil when the game pauses when you're reading a message, when you're at any terminal, the game is still in real time, and they're often placed in dangerous sections of the ship. There were plenty of times where I was trying to get through a text log and just died in the middle of it. I didn't realize until almost the end of the game that when you open a terminal, it saves into a text log in your menu, so you don't have to sit at the terminal and read it. Anyway, a little side note there. But there's a rich history to this place that you uncover throughout the game. Basically, it was built by one of Weyland's competitors during the first space rush, before it turned out that the space colonization mission of humanity would turn into something a lot more strained and stagnant than what they thought was going to become a new golden age of sorts. The station was richer in black market dealings than any actual commerce, and now we're at a point where the station has become obsolete. They were in the midst of shutting everything down and offloading all of the people that lived and worked there when they received a message from a ship called the Anisadora. The Anisadora, basically a random salvage crew, stumbled upon something extraordinary. A beacon that led them to a random exomoon where they found a certain derelict spaceship. And we get to play this flashback, which is incredible. The only thing that's kind of funny about it is that apparently another crew found the derelict in the exact same series of events played out in the exact same way as that first Alien movie. They found the space jockey, went down the same hole, found the same egg room, and one of them leaned over an opening egg and got another face hugger attached to them on their helmet in exactly the same way. Little bit of deja vu. But in order to get help for his wife, Marlowe of the Anisadora promises the Sevastopol that they will share the bounty for the Nostromo's flight recorder if they let them aboard the station and give her medical attention. You can even find where she chest bursted in the medical wing in the game. It's so cool. Over the course of the game, Amanda Ripley will team up with the security officer on board and then be betrayed by him as he launches her and the alien in a pod towards the gas giant. We escape out of the airlock and make our way back to the ship, only to find later that in the generator of the Sevastopol is an entire nest with multiple Xenos and facehuggers. This is a good section and I like the facehuggers as enemies. It also doesn't go on too long. Unfortunately though, after we blow the nest, the game just kind of refuses refuses to end. We go to the Anesidora where we get a message from Ellen Ripley voiced by Sigourney Weaver herself. Another huge highlight of this experience. And then Marlowe overloads his ship in order to destroy the Sevastopol. And we stop him. Though, I mean, he's kind of right. Like, should we really have stopped him? And then our Wayland friend Taylor dies in a pretty funny way. And then we escape back to the Sevastopol. You think you've reached the climax of the story, and then all of a sudden, you're walking outside on the station, turning satellites over the course of like 20 minutes, and there's no way to fail this part. It's just padding. But then finally, we're able to make our way back to our original ship, the Torrens, when a xenomorph takes us at the last second. This part genuinely pissed me off. So every other moment throughout the entire game, when you come into contact with the xenomorph, it's instant death. But this time it's a scripted event, so it just takes us, strings us up against the wall, and then leaves. Just like Newt. But the resin we're glued to the wall with is so weak we can just easily pull ourselves out with our own strength. And then we make our way back to the spot we were just at. This, again, is nothing but padding. Finally, though, we get off the station. We get back to our ship and... there's a xenomorph on this ship too. Guess we have to bust ourselves out of the airlock again. And then there's an ambiguous ending where Amanda might have gotten picked up by another ship. Who knows? It's an underwhelming ending to say the least. And that pretty much is Alien Isolation. There are several DLCs too that I personally haven't played because after that playthrough I had just enough of this game for at least a little while. However, even with the flaws, I still think this is a quintessential entry into the Alien franchise. It just understands what makes Alien tick so well. All in all, I'm gonna give this game an 8 out of 10. I'm not really scoring it like I was scoring the movies. Video game review might be a little out of my wheelhouse, but 8 out of 10 just feels right. In a world where H.R. Giger's perfect organism had become machine gun fodder, caged in cells, and nothing but a mascot for cheap cash grab tie-ins, Alien Isolation was able to make the xenomorph scary again, in a way that it hadn't been since 1979. And that marks the end of my Alien franchise retrospective. If you're still with me, I cannot thank you enough for sticking around. This has been by far the biggest project of my life, and I loved every second of it. Almost every second of it.
Who do I have to fuck to get off this boat?
But luckily, it's not quite done yet. There are still 2 other movies that I have yet to talk about. They go by the name Alien vs. Predator and Alien vs. Predator Requiem. But before I can talk about those, I need to reach across the aisle, so to speak. Because the next movie series I'm going to be looking at is the filmography of The Predator. And after that, I'll release my AVP video. But that's all for another day. Thank you so much to my beautiful, lovely patrons. If you want to support me and get these videos a day early, my Patreon is in the description. Thank you to ZocDoc again for sponsoring this video. And that's all I've got for today. So bye-bye. I love you. See you in the next one.
What's inside me?